Welcome to the Pinnacle Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Randal Langley, President of Christian Life School of Theology Global. The opportunity to share biblical wisdom with kingdom-minded leaders in the areas of lordship, leadership, and lifestyle led me to start this show. My desire is that through this podcast, you'll be equipped with relevant tools to maximize your leadership potential and reach the pinnacle of your calling. You'll hear from myself and many other successful leaders who are recognized experts on these topics and many others. We hope you enjoy this show.
Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. I'm Jonathan Langley, Dr. Langley's son, and today's guest host. Being an effective communicator is an essential quality for virtually any leader in any position. Are you an effective communicator? Are you sure? You may have been in leadership for decades, but that's no guarantee. Today's episode about the 4 stages of speaking will help you find out. We hope you enjoy this segment from one of Dr. Langley's Christian Life School of Theology Global courses, The Dynamics of Effective Communication.
You know, one of the cool things is that these are principles that you can learn. So I think sometimes we have this false perception, wow, that person is very charismatic. They're very gregarious. They're very outgoing. Wow, I can't be like them. I'm withdrawn, or I'm more phlegmatic in my personality. Whatever it is, I'm a melancholy, right? But the skills that we teach here are, for the most part, learned skills. And so that should be very encouraging for those of you that maybe feel like you've been frustrated or feel like you can't measure up or whatever. You can learn these skills, put them into practice, and no matter what level that you're at today as a communicator, you can take that up a few notches and you can really get the job done. So skills are taught, then they're worked out through application. And in this course, we're going to really take some time to inculcate these principles. So I like to talk about, I want to refer in this class a few times if you've printed out your syllabus, your study guide, there's some blank white space there, and I'm going to do right along with you some areas here. But I want to talk about, this is not in your syllabus, this is extra, but I want to talk about the 4 stages of learning and how they're connected to the 4 stages of speaking. So if any of you here are in education, you have an education background, a master's in education or anything, most people in the education field have heard of Abraham Maslow, because he was a psychologist that was really acclaimed in the process and the psychology of learning. But this is pretty much what we would outline as the 4 stages of learning. And I want you to write these down and understand them, because they're extremely connected to the 4 stages of speaking. All right? So he broke this down. He said, number 1, well, let me just put this up here. The 4 stages of learning. 4 stages of learning. Number 1 is what he called unconscious incompetence. Unconscious incompetence. Now, what this means really is we don't know what we don't know. And if you can read my writing, you can interpret tongues, you can do tongues and interpretation. Okay, so we don't know what we don't know. Let me give you an example. It's like an energetic little 3-year-old boy, and his brother gets, his 5-year-old brother or 6-year-old brother gets a bicycle for his birthday, right? And so the older brother's out there riding around and just, laughing with glee, excited, and the little brother is just full of jealousy because his older brother is just having so much fun, right? And so the little guy says, Mama, I want to ride that bike. And she says, no, you can't ride the bike. You're not able to ride the bike. But he is living in this world of unconscious incompetence. In other words, he doesn't know that he can't ride the bike. He doesn't know what he doesn't know, right? And so whether it's in business or in interpersonal communication or public speaking, a lot of people are at this place because they've never had an opportunity to really get any feedback about how they do, how well they communicate, what their is. They just don't know what they don't know. And then he identified the second stage is what he called conscious incompetence. This is the stage where you come to realize you know that you don't know. You know that you don't know. In other words, you learn something, and sometimes this comes with a lot of pain. So here's what happens. Little Johnny, 6-year-old, gets off that bicycle. He's got to go in and goes in the house for a sandwich. And while he parks his bike, little brother sees his opportunity to move in. He's going to take that bike for a ride. So he tries to get up there, climbs up on the seat, loses his balance, falls over, skins his knee, goes running to mom. Guess what? He just entered the realm of conscious incompetence. Now he knows what he didn't know before, that he's not able to ride that bike. And so from the stage, or anybody who's got some good feedback or had some experience, they might know for the first time, okay, now I know what I don't know, what it's like to be a communicator. The third level is we move to what we call conscious competence. Competence, there we go. And at this level here, we begin to practice, we begin to work at what we don't know. We'll just put it here. We work at what we don't know. All right, so now the little boy grows and grows. He gets to the age now where his feet are able to touch the pedals. We've all done this. If you've raised kids, it's a rite of passage to learn how to ride your bicycle, right? And so I can remember even when my kids were younger, and I'd run alongside them and hang onto the seat, right? And they're like, "Don't let go, Dad, don't let go." And they're just concentrating. They're just working really hard, they're just grabbing those steering wheel. And every once in a while, what do? You let go to let them. And then they'll look like, "You're hanging on, right? Oh, yeah, I got it." And you're kind of running up and down the street. And after a while, you let go, and you let go. And you're doing good, I let go. But they're just focused in, right? But as every kid knows, we then go to what Abraham Maslow called unconscious, and we come full circle, unconscious competence. And that's where after you've practiced a skill long enough, you basically don't even have to think about it. Now you don't just work at what you don't know, you just do what you know. And then before you know it, man, the kids are riding backwards, they're riding on their handlebars, they're doing tricks, they're doing jumps, they're doing all kinds of stuff. They don't think about it. In fact, most of us today probably, you could get on a bicycle and pretty much ride it and wouldn't even have to think all that much about it because you've gone through these stages of learning, right? Now, let me contrast that then with what we call the 4 stages of speaking. So number 1 is what we call the non-speaker. So someone at this stage, and there may be some of you in here, okay? We don't have to raise hands or do anything like that. But you've had a traumatic experience, or somebody said something or made remarks, or whatever. But for whatever reason, you avoid public speaking at all costs, right? You're gripped with fear. The emotional set is one with terror. We've all been in a meeting or whatever, or somebody said, "Hey, Jamie, come on up here and just share with us what happened." And that person just gets up there and, they got the microphone, and we're like, back in we used to have testimonies. Anybody remember testimony services? Anybody in testimony services? So those were famous for that, right? You get somebody up there and just tell us, just share with us a few words, right? And they're just, bless their hearts. In fact, that's what we're doing. We're sitting in the audience going, bless them, Jesus. Help them, Lord. Touch them. I mean, you can tell they're just gripped with terror, fear, right? That's the non-speaker, right? And even their interpersonal communication skills tend to be low. They generally work at jobs that don't require public speaking. They're kind of those behind-the-scenes people. That's just how they like it. Leave me alone. Those are what we call the non-speaker. And then you have number 2, what we could refer to as the occasional speaker, right? The occasional speaker. Now, these people here, at this level, they'll reluctantly accept a speaking assignment or a speaking engagement. They'll almost never volunteer. I mean, you almost have to go to them and pin them down and bribe them, that kind of thing. At stage 1, you can forget it. They'll just, they're just not going to make it. The occasional speaker, though, they'll speak if they have to. Right? But fear at number 1, at the non-speaker, fear at that level is what we would call debilitating, right? Fear at this level is what we would call inhibiting. It doesn't debilitate them, but it's, and I will say this is probably the easiest stage to advance from, is this occasional speaker platform, all right? So, if you can work and you can practice and you can really advance from that stage. The third level is what we would call the willing speaker. The willing speaker. Now, at this level, fear is not really a drawback. The emotional set can still be, there can still be tension there, but this person has learned to use their emotions positively. It's not fear-based, even though there may be some tension. They'll speak their mind. They'll speak up in business meetings. They got to share their thoughts. They're willing to put themselves out front when necessary. They might still need a little bit of a nudge, but in general, they know that they do well in public speaking, and they can be found in those positions where they have to communicate and have to lead through that way. And then number 4 is what we would call, I just call this the leader speaker. The leader speaker. Because at this, speaking stimulates these people, right? They're driven to present themselves and their ideas, and because they know that if I present this idea, if I do this well, then I reap the reward of my presentation. So these people speak for a living in one way or another. They're leaders. They speak for a living. And they'll speak up in all situations. They can inspire people. Their roles in business, by definition, would be influencers and leaders, right? And so they've developed the skills necessary to motivate and mobilize and inspire and move their agenda down the road. So I would venture that everybody in here, and you can kind of identify, what are you? Where are you at on that line here? Are you a non-speaker? And are you gripped with fear, but somebody made you take the class? There's probably, we have a thing called freedom groups that could help you maybe get free there. Probably the majority of the speakers are probably in 2, 3, and 4, right? And so just be encouraged. Even if you're a number 1, be encouraged. I promise you, there are things that you can learn in this class that will elevate your game and take you to a whole nother level of being an effective communicator. I don't know, I don't like to date myself that much because I'm pretty much a young guy. But years ago, we had a president named Gerald Ford. And Gerald Ford wasn't exactly the most charismatic individual on the planet. In fact, he was pretty much famous for being a very boring, nondescript president, and he made this famous statement. He knew it, that he wasn't that great a communicator. He made this statement. He said, if I went back to college again, I'd concentrate on two areas: learning to write and learning to speak before an audience. Nothing in life is more important than the ability to communicate effectively. So at least he acknowledged he was at one of these levels, and yet here he is at the highest office of the land, and I don't know if he's inhibited, but he was certainly somewhat handicapped in his inability to really speak with, connect to the heart of to motivate and mobilize people onto a stated agenda. All right? So you can find yourself in all kinds of places of influence and still not have the communication skills to really make you successful the way you want to be. Let's see how good I can do to clip over here. All right. These guys are just past the table of contents. I'm just kind of setting a platform here in this opening session. It says on what page is that? Page 3. Your enrollment and participation in this course reveals a sincere desire to grow and broaden your communication abilities. Whether you only speak on rare occasions or to speak people on a regular basis, we want you to sharpen your skills and become an effective communicator. There's truly, and this is really the heart. Now listen, this is a Bible college class. And so a lot of the things that I'm going to interject and say, you can extrapolate. You could cut out all the spiritual content and come away from this class and be very powerful in just the communication. But it's a Bible college class, so I'm going to interject a lot of spiritual thought as we go along. I hope that doesn't offend anybody. I hope you know that you signed up for a Bible college class, all right? Because this middle paragraph means a lot to me, where it says there's truly a higher standard for those endeavoring to become dynamic communicators of the glorious message of the gospel. You know, we're not clowns. We have opportunities that open doors that God sets before us, and we need to be able to seize upon those opportunities. Who was it years ago said, success occurs when opportunity meets preparation, right? And so a lot of people, when the opportunity comes, they're not prepared. And so they miss that opportunity. And so this course has been designed for people pursuing excellence in the art of public speaking and dynamic communication. Here it is. We want you to take the skills you learn and touch the lives of people in such a way that our world will be reached with the greatest message of all time. In other words, we as kingdom communicators need to communicate messages that change people's lives. That's really what it's about. We're going to talk a lot about the difference between communication and mere information. But it's not about getting more information out, it's about transformation. That's really our ultimate goal. And so, as you put these principles into practice, you'll develop a confidence found in the very best of public speakers. And you might want to highlight this too. Good communication is not necessarily what you say, but what people hear. Now think about that for a minute, right? Haven't we all been there? You've done your best to convey a thought. You've done your best to speak or whatever, and then somebody went and did the opposite thing, right? And you say, why did you do that? And you told me that. That's not what I said. But they would say, but that's what I heard, right? If you had the tension of those arguments, we've all been there. I remember when my children were little. Kids are great because kids just repeat whatever it is that they think that they hear, right? And do any of you remember the prayer revival that I think it was Larry Lee that kind of kicked that off? This was years ago, and people were coming to the church early in the morning and doing this, could you not tarry 1 hour? And it was all based on the Lord's Prayer. It kind of broke down the Lord's Prayer. Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. You spend some time in prayer or praise, and then you just kind of work through the template of the Lord's Prayer as an outline to pray into these different areas of your life. Well, this guy wrote a song, I think his name was Tim Shepard, wrote a song about speaking to the north, speaking to the south, command the enemy to give up those inheritance of salvation and so forth. And there's this line in the song that goes, and they say to the north, give up, and we say to the south, give up. Drop your weapons, surrender in the name of the Lord. And we say to it was kind of cool, snappy little song. Well, our kids were young at that time. They were dancing around, singing all these Christian songs. But one day I heard my kids singing this song, but their version was slightly different than what the words of the song were. And I'm listening, and I heard my son go, and he was singing like he was speaking to the prince of the power of the air, he's singing, and we say to the north, give up. We say to the south, give up. You better drop those women, surrender in the name of the Lord. I just busted a gut laughing. I thought, holy cow, that'll preach. Drop those women right now in the name of the Lord, But so good communication isn't about what you say. It truly is about what people hear. That's the power of the tongue. And so that's a lot what we have the privilege of focusing on.
Thanks for listening to the Pinnacle Leaders Podcast. This show can be found on Apple Podcasts, cpnshows.com, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you have suggestions for this show, we'd love to know what you think. Visit www.randallangley.com to share your thoughts or connect with me on social media. You can also find other resources and interviews with my previous guests on my website, Facebook, and Instagram. We exist to serve kingdom-minded leaders like you. Grace and peace, my friends.